Good morning. Happy Women's History Month and happy spring. It's so good to be here with you on this early, beautiful, sunny spring day. Thank you, Nancy, for the invitation and for guiding me through today's visit to UUCSC. Almost a month ago, on that one and only snow day of the year, we held the launch event and press conference for Courageous Rhode Island at the State House Library in Providence. For many weeks, our branding and website designer, Boris, had been trying hard to talk us out of that name our team had decided that we liked best. It's too long. It's too hard to spell. It doesn't say anything about what you're trying to do, but we prevailed. And Courageous RI was launched that snowy day in February. Even before the event got underway, Renee Hobbs, the project's executive director and professor of communication studies at URI, was greeted as she entered the library door by a radio news reporter who extended his microphone to her and led with, "Dr. Renee Hobbs at the URI Media Lab. Let me ask you about this initiative. Courageous. It's an ostentatious name, actually." Ostentatious. I had to look it up to make sure. Yep, ostentatious. Oxford defines it as characterized by vulgar or pretentious display, designed to impress or attract notice. Well, that's one Boris hadn't used in his arguments. With the entire state of Rhode Island as our target audience, we definitely wanted to attract notice. And I think that asking Rhode Islanders to be courageous with us was exactly what we were trying to do. From that day forward, we were asking them to join us on this 2-year, 3-phase, part instructional, part conversational, part creative, courageous journey, using the skills of media literacy and civic engagement to help prevent targeted violence and domestic terrorism in our state. When the Republican General Assembly member we'd invited to show our openness to diverse views got up to speak at the launch, he wished us well, but voiced his skepticism that we'd be doing much more than preaching to the choir and that he thought the Department of Homeland Security could have found better use for their anti-terrorism efforts. Well, we haven't only been preaching to the choir, have we, Nancy? In fact, our main tool, media literacy, is about as far as you can get from preaching at all. Media literacy is most often defined as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create messages in all the forms of media we use, and then to reflect on that process and act on that combined knowledge. While I like the simpler label, literacy for the 21st century, or a 21st century approach to education, my favorite brief descriptions of media literacy are making the invisible visible and paying attention to the man behind the curtain. It's really all about just asking questions about what we read, watch, hear, see, and use. The 5 key questions to analyze any media message that we use at the Media Education Lab, which are on our Media Education Lab smartphones at the back of the room for you to take on your way out. Who is the author and what was their purpose in making this message? What techniques were used to attract and hold your attention? What lifestyles, values, and points of view are represented in this message? How might different people interpret this message? What's omitted? Some of our colleagues use 7 or 10 questions, but we feel these key 5 questions questions usually suffice to get a good discussion going about what goes into the making of a media message, the making of meaning, both consciously and unconsciously. Our UU bylaws state, grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. I think media literacy can support both. And I think both courage and media literacy relate to and support the 8 UU principles. Let's take a look at the things we affirm and promote. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. One aspect of media literacy is about looking deeply at cultural representations in the media of age, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic group, or spiritual tradition, and how they might influence attitudes and behaviors towards ourselves and others, both negatively and positively. Yes, media can do both. For example, I'm a big believer in the phrase, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think it's no coincidence that in the decade before Barack Obama's election, at least 10 Black presidents were depicted in mainstream popular culture. Or that TV shows and movies featuring relatable LGBTQ+ characters eased the way for gay rights legislation. It obviously takes courage to come out as gay or transgender, or to be a person of color in a predominantly white community, or as a Jew or Muslim in a mostly Christian state. But it also takes courage to be an ally for those in our lives and in our communities living those sometimes challenging experiences. Justice, equity, compassion, and human relations. It takes courage to stand up to the injustice, inequity, and lack of compassion we experience or see around us. Media literacy looks deeply at emerging media issues like violent video game use and addiction, cyberbullying, sexting, and other social media use among youth, the dark web, deep fakes. And practitioners in our field are often on the front lines of research on youth media use and its effect on their capacity for healthy relationships and qualities like empathy. Websites like Common Sense Media help parents make media choices for their families that affirm their principles and values. And it takes courage and time to take control of that part of our family life. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition that encourages each individual to develop a personal faith. It draws from many different religions in the belief that no one religion has all the answers and that most have something to teach us. Likewise, media literacy education and our first phase of Courageous Rhode Island, Courageous Conversations, allow for multiple voices, perspectives, and lived experiences to emerge, and they encourage respect for those differences. It sometimes takes courage just to listen deeply to a different view from our own, and to agree to disagree with respect. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our UU religious identity is sometimes hard to pin down because we move and change as the times demand. We keep moving forward because we know that truth and meaning making are dynamic, not static processes. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning is also at the heart of media literacy, along with an understanding of how meaning is constructed, both by the sender and the receiver of media messages, and how truth can be distorted. One of our taglines for Courageous RI is stay curious, not furious. It's easy to attach to a belief that tells us what to think and doesn't require us to analyze that much. It takes courage to maintain an open mind and heart and stay curious. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Media literacy education and citizenship education are often linked, as they both provide essential knowledge and skills for full participation in our democracy. Media literacy lessons provide truth seeking, and media production activities provide an opportunity for truth speaking for all, including marginalized individuals and groups. I think our democratic process, a beacon to many freedom seekers around the world, is worth our full and courageous participation to keep it alive and thriving in these challenging times, don't you? The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. I believe media literacy and courage are both essential practices to help bring that goal into closer focus. Through the Media Education Lab, which Renee Hobbs founded in Philadelphia and brought with her to URI over a decade ago, we have been traveling the globe for decades, training others in media literacy. Now, through Courageous Rhode Island's online Courageous Conversations, the world is coming to us in Rhode Island to learn those skills. And many of our Rhode Island participants have been surprised and delighted that diverse national and international perspectives are being shared in their breakout room discussion groups. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We cannot deny that a part of that web of all existence of which we are a part today includes the World Wide Web of our virtual lives. Will that amazing tool that helps connect us in ways many of us couldn't even have imagined in our youth be ultimately used for good or ill? The answer, as usual, is in our hands and in the hands of future generations. Let's help make sure it's in the hands of courageous, civically engaged, curious, compassionate, and media literate world citizens. And lastly, we affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Since this is the exact opposite of the goal of the radicalized views that can lead to targeted violence and domestic terrorism, it obviously takes courage to listen for a deeper understanding of the underlying emotions, values, or conditioning that led to those views. To stay in conversation with those who, hopefully in good faith, hold very different views than our own. But that is exactly what we are asking of all who attend Courageous Conversations, the beloved community after all, is a community in which everyone is cared for, absent of poverty, hunger, and hate. 2 weeks ago, the sermon our senior minister at First Unitarian Providence gave was based on the hero's journey. I'm sure many of you know the steps: the call to the adventure out of the ordinary world, refusal of the call, meeting the mentor, crossing the threshold, tests, allies, enemies. I sat there thinking, oh, damn, I'm on another friggin' hero's journey. I thought I would have done all that. I was wrong. So what do you say? Up for joining us on our courageous journey? For telling others about Courageous Rhode Island? At the very least, I hope you will stay curious, not furious. Now, if you are willing and able, please rise in body or spirit to sing our